I'm very simple. I don't get many things, but I get that at the moment, I hear that we're going to have a gas shortage, but we are, I think, the second biggest gas exporter in the world. Are we locked in long-term contracts, giving it away for nothing and then screwing ourselves?
Basically, yes. We give it away so cheap that we end up almost having to buy it back more expensive. If you look at a lot of our fossil fuels, we give it away for nothing, and all the
You mean coal and
all of it. Like Australia should be one of the richest nations in the world because of the volume of our natural resources. Put to one side climate change and the impact of that level of extraction, and just sort of draw a line and go, where are we now? Given what we've pulled out the ground, where's that money gone? Well, most of it has gone offshore, or it's gone to companies which pay no tax. And that's a problem. And it's a problem domestically, where now gas specifically is more expensive domestically for us to use than it is for us, what it's the value of that gas in other countries. Because
so a consumer in another country getting Australian gas all the way shipped there still gets it delivered cheaper than what we're paying in here, is it?
Yeah.
That's insane. Why is that?
Because they're just the agreements and the deals that have been made.
Well, if this would be Donald Trump, he'd be just ripping it up and say, guys, you got to pay more.
Yeah. I know. Look, if you sort of look at it from that level of equity and inequality, a lot of that level of policy makes no sense. If you look at the cheapest form of energy generation, bar none, which is renewables, you look at the amount of actual financial support it gets, compared with the fossil fuel industry, it's just disgusting. And then,
you're saying it's not enough, is it?
Oh, it's a fraction, absolute fraction. But then what isn't ever equated into those numbers is the cleanup cost. How much does it cost the country for the consequences of all of that extraction, all of that pollution, and then climate change? If you just look at the cost from insurance companies of extreme weather events, which are getting worse, they're getting more common, they're getting more frequent, they're getting more intense. And where does that come from? Well, it's come from decades, generations of pumping out CO2 and increasing sea levels, increasing the temperature of the oceans. If you look at some of the hurricanes that developed in America end of last year, they accelerated quicker and they're more intensive than ever before. Why? Because the temperature of the water was hotter than ever before. And it's only going to get worse. The temperature of the oceans isn't going to get less. It's only going to get more. And, I've been through 2 floods in where I live, and the last flood was insane. The speed that the water came up, the amount of water that was dumped was incredibly frightening. And the prospect is now that that's something we're going to actually have to live with, because there's nothing that can be done about it. There's no way to divert the water. It's purely just the fact that a lot of towns in Australia are going to be susceptible to climate change. So when you look at that whole question of equity and equality and the financial support and the implications of federal policy, it makes no sense, and it isn't serving the Australian people.
So you're saying more renewables?
I'm saying absolutely more renewables, and really to stop the expansion of coal mines and to reduce the amount of extraction of coal and natural gas and everything else. Really embrace the AEMO ISP. There's this plan, this trajectory of how the country can get to 100% renewables by 2050. Maybe look to bring that forward, because it's completely achievable. If you look at the rate of the uptake of renewables, especially at the domestic level, it actually has always been at a higher rate than the predictions of AEMO. And there is no reason why we couldn't bring that zero carbon, or that prospect,
reduction.
That reduction forward by 10 years. But again, you look at the debates around energy policy. Most of them are still trying to justify, let's use more coal.
Well, because those people possibly have the money and the lobbyists.
They get lobbied. Yeah, absolutely. And they get lobbied, and the companies doing that lobbying, the money that they're making doesn't really flow back to the economy. Again, if you look at the amount of people employed in the fossil fuel industry versus the amount of people employed in the renewable industry, there's a lot more in the renewable industry.
But the fossil fuel industry employs a lot of accountants, so they don't have to pay the tax.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good work employment program.
Yeah.